So, the reception to my Guardians of the Galaxy post-credit scene, connected to Thor the Dark World, has gotten some pretty interesting, I'd say, reception. For the most part, a lot of people seem to disagree with me, but there do seem to be a lot of people that do agree with me, and I do like that. I just wish the fanboys would piss off, or at the very least, I would like for them to actually get some, I don't know, good arguments, to actually debate with me instead of just calling me a Marvel hater, a stick in the mud, and just a freaking moron. That's basically the polite versions of what they've been telling me. Those are their arguments for why Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be quote unquote awesome. But this video is not about that. This video is about how that video kind of influenced me to review this film. Because when I saw this film 2 years ago, I wasn't a comic book fan. This was like only a few months before the New 52 began and really got me into comics. And I was really not fair to the film looking back on it. I just didn't give it a fair shot. I thought Captain America was just a shitty, boring character, and I just really didn't care. And I really wish I could have started reading comic books before seeing this film, because I think this is, without a doubt, Marvel Studios' most consistent film in terms of quality. Now, I still prefer Iron Man 1 to this, but Iron Man 1, it kind of goes downhill as the film progresses. The first part with him in the cave and stuff is all amazing, fantastic stuff. The second part with him trying out the suits is good and fun and stuff, but it's not as good as the first part, and then the third part with Ironmonger is really lackluster, and the film kind of goes, it doesn't go as well as it starts. It gets progressively worse as the film goes on, and the third act is kind of lackluster and stuff, but I still really, really like that film. But I have to say that Captain America First Avenger is easily a very, very close second. Like, I would say the First Avenger is easily my second favorite Marvel Studios film, and I think it's their best film in terms of just sheer quality, because the first part of the film is amazing, the second part is pretty good, and the third part is, for the most part, it's still pretty good. There are no low points in the film, and besides some of the wonky CGI, which I'm going to get to later on, I really can't name any big issues with the film. I think that the casting is just perfect all around. I think that everyone does a fantastic job with their performances. Peggy Carter comes off as this very, confident woman who, she's kind of annoyed that she's living in a man's world where they just don't treat her right just because she's a woman. It's kind of hinted at through the film. Steve Rogers is easily the most interesting character in this whole film, along with Red Skull, which is kind of what it should be. The main character and the main bad guy should be the most interesting guys, I guess. But Captain America is really interesting because the film doesn't spend, copious amounts of time just explaining to you, why Steve Rogers is awesome, why he's perfect for the project. There are several scenes while he's training, and these are my favorite scenes of the whole film, where he's just proving to everyone just why he's awesome. For example, there's a scene where they're all running next to a flag, and the trainer tells them, you gotta get the flag down. Everyone just tries to brute force it, no one thinks it through, and they all fail. But Steve, he manages to, take down the pole, he brings it down without even trying, and he gets the flag down, and he gets a ride back with Peggy to the base as a reward. Another great scene is where, the general, I think he's played by Robert De Niro, I don't know what his name is, I don't know. His face, I always get those two actors mixed up, so he might be Robert De Niro, I'm not sure, and I'm probably wrong, but someone's going to correct me in the comments. But for the sake of the review, I'm just going to call him Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro throws a dummy grenade in the group, and they're like doing these physical exercises, and everyone runs away, but Steve, he throws himself on top of the grenade, and he tells all of his comrades to get away from him, and that just shows that he is a guy who he's not just going to brute force through anything, because he's kind of been physically weak his whole life. He's had to become strong in other ways. He's had to become strong in his mind, which makes him a lot smarter than a lot of the just, borderline inbred retards that are kind of showcased in this film. And it also shows that he is, strong in his convictions. living life as the small guy has affected him. He doesn't like bullies, and he kind of sees the Nazis as the ultimate bullies. He just sees them as these horrible, horrible people that are just trying to force their will onto other people that don't want to be part of it, and he kind of sees them as the ultimate bullies, and he genuinely wants to serve his country. It's not like today where the army is just used as a scapegoat. Oh, you don't have any education, join the army and shoot shit. Oh, you want to get some easy money? Join the army and shoot shit. That's basically the mentality of a lot of soldiers these days. And this is going to be maybe something else controversial, but there are a lot of soldiers that I personally know that just do it for the money or just do it for the easy education. And the way Steve does it, he doesn't do it for the money or the education or the fame or the glory. He just wants to serve his country, and he wants to help better the world. He is a genuinely very good person. He's a good, decent man who's trying to do his best, to help the world. And, he wants to serve his country because he loves it, and he has, faith in it and stuff. So much so that he's willing to parade himself around like a borderline freaking propaganda piece retard in the middle of the film, which is one of the funniest parts of the film, where he's just like in his shitty Captain America costume. He's just being used as a propaganda piece. His new physical augmentations aren't being used properly at all. And he loves his country so much, he's willing to make himself look like a borderline fool just if it means helping them. And I just love the way Chris Evans delivers his whole performance as Steve Rogers. He completely loses himself in the role. And like Robert Downey Jr., he just immediately becomes the character. Chris Hemsworth, it took him and kind of Tom Hiddleston a while to get there, but they did get there, later on and stuff. But Chris Evans immediately knows how to act Cap. I'm not still sold on him as like this badass commander guy, but I will say that he's getting progressively better and better, just like all of his other peers at the Avengers. And I think that there will be a point very, very soon where he's just going to get Captain America's commanding, presence down, and he's going to just nail Cap perfectly. He just embodies, he's just able to deliver Cap's emotions perfectly, just, with his facial expressions, by the way he acts. And it's just a fantastic performance. Another thing that I really liked about this film is the tone. This is probably the most DC Marvel movie, and I mean that kind of in a good way, because this film, more than almost any other Marvel film, except Iron Man 1, it has lots of great themes and ideas. And a lot of those themes and ideas, they do center around Captain America, like I said, but a lot of them also center around the Red Skull. And the Red Skull is easily the most villainous villain of Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios is kind of notorious for getting their villains down wrong, Ironmonger was kind of lame. Whiplash, he was lame. Loki was a fucking pussy in the Avengers, and he wasn't threatening at all. Malekith was just a big load of nothing, and they've had a lot of problems getting their villains down, but the Red Skull is awesome, and I love him because he represents everything Nazis are. The Nazis were always about doing whatever the hell it took to become the ultimate human being, and through a prototype version of the super soldier serum, the Red Skull, Johann Schmidt, he is able to become the perfect human, except his face gets kind of messed up and he becomes Red Skull. He is able to reach, the perfect, human capacity. He has the largest human capacity possible, for punches, for kicks, top speed, top reflexes and stuff, and he's become, the ultimate human. But that's not enough to him, because after you become the ultimate human, there's got to be more. You got to go even higher, and that's why he, finds the Tesseract, and he wants to harness the Tesseract's power to basically reach the level kind of a god. And this is kind of what Nazism, or at least a big portion of it, was, because the Nazis always valued, perfection. They had like select breeding. They wanted, to have the perfect human soldiers, and they were willing to do whatever they whatever was necessary in order to get more and more and more and more power. They didn't care what they dabbled in, and it's a fact that the Nazis really dabbled in the occult, and they were basically willing to do whatever the fuck it took to gain more power and to defeat their enemies. And the Red Skull is the perfect personification of all of this. He is the ultimate Nazi, I guess. He just personifies everything the Nazis stood for. The power hunger, the need, to become more and more and more, the kind of the arrogance. And that's why I like him, because he is everything the Nazis were, taken to the nth degree, but it's not hammed up. Hugo Weaving delivers a fantastic performance as the Red Skull, because he is, genuinely threatening. He doesn't do over-the-top bullshit, and he is, he is the ultimate Nazi, I guess. He doesn't get more Nazi, than this guy. And that's kind of what makes him, really interesting. I always kind of wondered, like what kind of guy, completely personifies, Nazism. And, you could say Adolf Hitler, but Adolf Hitler was not, the physical perfection. He wasn't, that particularly handsome. He did fully believe in their ideals, and he did, create them. But he wasn't, the perfect one, But Red Skull, barring his destroyed face, which kind of does bug him. It's hinted throughout the film that that's the one thing that really annoys the shit out of him, that he's attained this level of human perfection, but his face is destroyed and he can never get his old face back, and it's just annoying the ever-loving bejesus out of him. It's basically a villain whose face is destroyed that's done right. It's not like Malekith, where his face is destroyed and then it does nothing for his character. It really adds more to Johann Schmidt's character, and it really, really works. And he is, like I said before, the ultimate Nazi. As far as the action goes, I have to say that the action in this film is pretty freaking awesome. The only problem with the action, the only really glaring problem with the film, is the CGI. The CGI looks like a cheap TV show a lot of the time, The town, a lot of the scenery, and a lot of the action scenes, a lot of the vehicles, it just doesn't look that particularly good. I mean, I swear to God, there were some points that looked just so ridiculous and so bad. Arrow has better CGI at points, not all of it. I will say that there are some pretty damn awesome action scenes, and the CGI, when it looks good, it looks really good. But there are several noticeable points where the CGI just takes a complete nosedive in quality, and it looks worse than Arrow's CGI. I really feel like maybe it's something with the camera work, but because I do know that they did use, real sets, it wasn't all CGI. But I do wish that maybe they got a different camera or something, or maybe they polished up the CGI more, because the vehicles like the train and the planes, the tanks, they look really, really bad, and they just look kind of poorly rendered. And that's my only real glaring problem with the film, is that if the CGI was perfected, I would have literally nothing major negative to say about this film at all. And I really like how the humor is done in this film. The humor, there isn't a lot of it. This film takes itself, not super, super, super seriously, but it does take itself seriously enough that it allows itself to have, moments of levity here and there, and it does, let itself get pretty dark and pretty emotional at points, which I also like. And the humor is perfect because it feels like real life humor. That when Steve's the skill, still the scrawny kid, he says some stuff, or his mannerisms are kind of awkward, and it's kind of funny to see him interact with Peggy when he has next to no self-esteem. His banter with Bucky is also pretty entertaining. You can tell that these guys are really good friends. And also, I think it's really interesting that Bucky is the big, handsome, strong man, while Cap is kind of the weaker, scrawny, younger guy. I think that's a pretty interesting, kind of flip of the 616, where Cap was, the big badass, and Bucky was just like his teenage sidekick or whatever. Cap's not teenage here. He's like 24, 25, I guess, maybe even more. But you get the idea. It's a cool twist on their, relationship. I've been told it's part of the Ultimate Universe. I don't know Ultimate Cap's history, because I think he's He's the personification of everything wrong with the American society and just insane fucking blind patriotism taken to the nth degree, and that's why I just don't like him. Plus, he's a asshole scumbag who deserves to die. So I don't know his history, and I don't want to know it. And I'm not talking about this version of Cap. I'm talking about Ultimate Cap. The horrible version of Captain America, not the 616, aka Cinematic Universe version, which is pretty damn good in my opinion. But yeah, the humor feels perfectly placed. There are no scenes ever in the film where I just felt like that joke was forced. Every funny moment felt right. It felt like this was the perfect moment for that funny scene, and it felt human. It never felt like, kind of like Thor: The Dark World. Thor: The Dark World's big problem for me was that whenever Kat Dennings showed up as Darcy on the main screen, on the big screen, it was like, all right, we gotta give her 6 fucking cringeworthy, horrible jokes just for the sake of trying to do jokes. So let's go. Here's joke 1, then joke 2, then joke 3, and joke 4. And I was like, I can see what you're doing. Please stop. It's not funny. It's cringeworthy. Just let the fucking humor die. But that's not a problem in this film. This film's humor is perfectly paced. It feels natural. It feels like funny situations you would find yourself kind of in real life, and that's what I liked about it. No joke or no kind of funny situation was ever over the top or just cringeworthy bad. All the funny stuff was funny, and it felt perfectly paced, and it felt natural, which is more than I can say about almost every other Marvel movie, bar the Avengers. Alright, even Iron Man 1 had some pretty kind of outlandish moments, but Avengers and this film kind of nail it right. And there's one last line. In the final battle between Red Skull and Cap, they kind of talk about their philosophies while they're fighting. When they don't, monologue about it. But Red Skull says something that's a clear indication to Winter Soldier. And he basically tells Cap that in the future, wars are not going to be fought like this. There aren't going to be soldiers, and there aren't going to be big wavy flags and guys in flashy costumes, and propaganda pieces. And Cap tells him, no, that's not going to be my version of the future. And that's actually really true, because when you think about it, wars aren't fought like that anymore. Wars are all fought from the shadows with guys in black suits and stuff, secret agents, backstabbing, manipulation and stuff. It's not like how it used to be, where you have propaganda piece films before the theater, which is another big theme of the film, how propaganda was used, how different people reacted to it. Some people were really crazy about it, and Cap becomes kind of a movie star because of how he's popular in the propaganda films. There are just some guys who just want to go and watch the movies to kind of escape from the war, and they don't need 50 minutes of propaganda piece commercials to keep reminding him, oh, we're sending our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, our sons, our nephews to go be murdered in God knows what fucking pisshole in Nazi-infested Europe or Imperial Japan-infested island in the Pacific. And I really thought it was another great part of the film. But going back to this, it really does make a lot of sense, and it's a clear kind of hint to the Winter Soldier. And if you watch the trailer for Cap Winter Soldier, you're going to see that Cap doesn't kind of like this. He doesn't like that people are being murdered before they even commit any kind of crime. There is no due process anymore. It's like if your country thinks of you as a threat or another person as a threat, they're going to eliminate you. You're not going to be given a fair trial. You're just going to be murdered, dumped into some kind of piss hole in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and no one's ever going to find you again, and no one's going to be able to mourn you. And that's just kind of realistically what happened. And I just thought that one line was just so kind of thought-provoking, and it just made my mind spin, and it was just such a cool kind of nod. It was kind of a clear indication what's going to happen in Cap Winter Soldier, and that line alone, it just got me really excited for what's going to happen for the Winter Soldier, because Cap clearly doesn't agree with this new mentality, and it's going to be so cool to see what's he going to do in the sequel. And my God, was I wrong about this movie. I wish I started reading comic books before I saw this film, because I've spent the past 2 years just shitting on it based on just my stupid, non-educated guess. And I really wish I didn't do that, because this is easily my second favorite Marvel Studios film. I think it's their best film in overall quality. Almost every other one of their films has several glaring problems that just bring down the overall package for me. Here, the best I can say is that at points the CGI is wonky. That's it. I've got really nothing else bad I could say. The film looks, for the most part, visually pretty damn awesome. I love the period piece feel of it. I really liked, how the film did Captain America and the Red Skull. I love Cap's costume. It's so much better than that awful Power Ranger suit he had in the Avengers, and thank God they're going to bring that back for the sequel. So yeah, I give this film the highest of possible recommendations. I think this is easily the best film Marvel Studios has done so far in terms of quality, and I cannot wait for The Winter Soldier. I think it has the potential to just be freaking spectacular, and I hope if the sequel is even an iota as good as this, I will be pleased. Okay, I will just be pleased, and if this film manages to even be, and if the Winter Soldier ends up being even better than First Avenger, holy shit! Like, we could be witnessing, the next fantastic solo Marvel film. So yeah, I highly recommend this film. I wish I wasn't so unfair to this film for the past 2 years, because it's just fantastic, and I just think everybody should go see this.